It's a weird old event, the Olympics. Every 4 years, 1 week in sailing, or some people it's 10 seconds. I'd always actually have a bit of a panic on if we were doing too well in the build up to a big event, because I'm like, we're not learning enough. For sure, winning the Women's America's Cup, the first one in history, would be phenomenally amazing.
What's the difference between being involved in a silver medal campaign and a gold medal campaign?
When the start gun goes, they're gone. You're into racing, the nerves are kind of out the back door and you're just doing what you do. Having a daughter now as well after Tokyo, you really try and live in the moment and enjoy what's in front of you and not get too carried away with thinking too far ahead.
So here's the thing. If Ben wins this cup in October, we've spoken before about that will be his absolutely defining moment in time. But what about you? Because you are going to be contesting the first Women's America's Cup in October as well. So I feel like that will be similarly another moment in time for you. In the build-up to that, reflecting on what's been before, what would you say would be the moment that currently now occupies that title and that spot?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, winning the Women's America's Cup, the first one in history, would be phenomenally amazing. But I think, when you ask me to think back, I think for me, it probably is the Rio 2016 Olympics and winning my first gold medal at those games with Saskia Clark as my teammates. We'd silvered in London, both pretty devastated, to be honest, with the silver. We felt like we had much more to give. We felt like it was a missed opportunity. But ultimately, I look back and we just weren't prepared enough. We weren't experienced enough. We didn't think through enough what ifs. What if this happens? What do we do? There's so many lessons from that silver in London that we took forward into the Rio campaign. And that's the campaign where I feel like I learned how to win.
It's really interesting you say that, because most people won't associate silver with defeat. But ultimately for an athlete, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? The cup has a famous saying, which is there is no second.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
So looking to that, do you feel like, and you alluded to it just now, but the lessons learned from that particular campaign are greater than almost any other in that what you learn from failure ultimately?
100%, always. I'd always actually have a bit of a panic on if we were doing too well in the build up to a big event, because I'm like, we're not learning enough. If if everything's going amazingly well, we're not learning the hard lessons that you kind of need reminding of before a major championship. And I think that's sailing in a way. Like, you're constantly under the hammer. Everything's always changing. There's so much uncontrollable about our sport that you're just constantly under pressure, learning, failing, and trying to get better. And yeah, that's definitely what came from London, was what we need to do to win.
And you had dominance in Rio. So you talk about the fact that you're sort of, worried if things aren't going wrong, how to sort them out, and you're not learning enough. But in Rio, you were dominant, and that led to the gold medal. So what was that period of time like in the build up to that gold medal? Because with dominance comes a little bit, by the sounds of it, paranoia.
Yeah, I mean, I guess before Rio, in the build up when we were out there, so as sailors for a games, we get out there kind of 1 to 2 weeks before the game starts to prepare and get the boat ready and just get used to the conditions and just kind of gel in the Olympic environment and get used to it. And I actually got a bit poorly sort of just before the game, so it kind of totally shifted our build up to that. And so I was in bed for kind of 4 days just trying to recover, letting Sass and our coach and team make sure the boat was ready. And we did a really mini sail just before we started racing. And then, the first few days was just like, I've just got to get through these.
That's just the worst ever preparation. I mean, how on earth do you sort of sort that out in your head, as well as obviously you got a physical thing to be dealing with, but how do you get your head straight?
Yeah, a lot was down to the preparation of our team, actually. And we did so much work on this, of that trust in your roles, your responsibilities, and what ifs. We'd done this scenario. We'd done a what if Hannah's poorly, or what if Sass is ill or injured, or whatever it is that totally shifts our routine. Like, what are we going to do? Who's going to come in and support? And so it was.
So how do you do that? Do you role play through that?
Yeah, we just talk about it. We'd always have, every month, the three of us, myself, Sass, and our coach, would sit down We'd do a big review of everything. And part of that review was each one of us would bring 1 or 2 or 3 what-if scenarios for the Olympics, and we'd talk about them, and we'd make plans for if that scenario happened, how we'd best deal with it. So when it does happen, it's kind of you're straight into, well, hang on, we've done this before almost, even though you haven't actually. And you just switch in and it kind of runs like clockwork generally.
Wow. That's really fascinating, isn't it? Because like you say, talk about the variables in your sport, of which there are plenty, but there's also just variables in life. So you have to sort of prepare for every version of that as well. So in the build up to the racing and what took place there, obviously you were unwell. So that's a scenario you've got to role play. But then when you started racing, what does that feel like? I mean, most people will come to this podcast having had their eyes glued to the Olympics in Paris and been watching the progress of many of our brilliant British athletes over there doing what they're doing. So what does that feel like, being an Olympian in the moment where it's absolutely key? It's the most important moment in that 4-year period.
Yeah, it's a weird old event, the Olympics. Every 4 years, 1 week in sailing, or, some people it's 10 seconds to deliver your best performance. And, the Olympics, they say, doesn't move for anyone or anything. Turns out in COVID it did, but, it is there on that date and there's no moving it. And so you have to be ready. And it's like nothing else you'd ever experience, I don't think, in terms of pressure and that want to perform and deliver. And you wake up every day feeling sick, feeling nervous, wanting to crawl back asleep and not face what's coming. But for me, I just remind myself that this is why I do what I do, for these moments, to try and be the best in the field and to try and beat everybody else and deliver. And it's such a privileged position to be in, to get to do that on a global stage and Olympic Games. I've grown up watching the games, being obsessed by it, watching athletes do incredible things. And so you just kind of, for me anyway, just embrace it, look at it as, wow, what a cool opportunity.
How do you manage that pressure though? Because like you say, you wake up every morning feeling sick, feeling nauseous about what's about to happen. Like, were you physically sick?
Hello, performance people, listeners. My name is Freddie Carr and I host a podcast called The Inside Tack, which is a podcast that follows the British America's Cup team, INEOS Britannia, as we get ready for the 37th America's Cup down here in Barcelona. We also follow the youth and the first ever Women's America's Cup. We would love you to like and subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on all your social media channels as we get ready for our sporting challenge of a lifetime.
I wasn't physically sick. No, I don't tend to do that physically. Don't get that reaction. Just the don't want to eat.
Knots in the stomach.
Knots in the stomach. Just force feeding myself to get the calories in. But again, it's just preparation. Again, is that it's coming. There's not a whole heap you can do to stop it. And so there's acceptance, first of all, of that feeling. It's going to be rubbish, but the feeling afterwards is going to be great. So the acceptance, and then it's routines. You've done your routines of, I wake up, I stretch, I go for breakfast, I get down to the boat park, I rig, I have my... There's just constant routines. So you don't really have to think too much, and you're just doing, and you're ticking them off, and that's giving you confidence. And then you get out on the water and you do the same. And when the start gun goes, they're gone. You're into racing, the nerves are kind of out the back door and you're just doing what you do. And so I definitely say that, repeat of routine allows you to manage the pressure.
And like you say, it's a week of racing for sailing to get to that gold medal. So what was that period like in Rio? How did that go for you as compared to the silver medal experience in London? What changed?
What changed? What changed? I think we dealt with things that didn't go our way better in Rio. Every Olympics in sailing, you're going to have things that don't go your way, whether it's, a mistake, a boat breakage, you hit a mark, you have to do a spin, you get a jury flag, so you have to do some spins, whatever it is, or a few things are going to not go your way. And I think in London, we maybe let them get to us a bit too much. We weren't as experienced in dealing with that on that stage. And then in Rio, we had the same, like we capsized on the second day when we were winning the race and ended up in sixth. And just, I guess, how we responded to that, we then got the boat back up, we finished sixth, and then we won the next race. And I think that response to something going wrong in adversity was just as good as it could be in Rio.
And obviously, like you say, it's a team scenario. There's a lot of team behind the team, but there's you and Saskia out there together. How do you manage that relationship? How did you manage that relationship over the course of not just the racing, but the preparation going into the event as well? Because you're so reliant on it. It's so codependent, isn't it, as a relationship?
Yeah, you're totally reliant on each other. You're so responsible, I guess, for yourself and understanding yourself and how you're going to respond to different scenarios and different pressures. And then you're responsible for your team and how you interact and how you bounce off each other when you're under the hammer and the pressure's ramped up. And so again, I say again, it's preparation. It is talking about it. I know that when the pressure comes on for me, I tend to go into my shell a little bit. I'm less communicative, and in a 2-person boat, that's not good. And so I really have to draw it out of myself and make sure I'm still communicating and asking Sass the same questions I would always ask her. And so a lot of it is about self-awareness, I think, individually and as a team.
What's the difference between being involved in a silver medal campaign and a gold medal campaign in terms of what does it give you as a person? What does it do for you? What are the things that you've learned most post those experiences? Because you, of course, got gold again subsequently.
Yeah, I mean, I think for London with the silver, I think we both just felt like just gutted. I think like there was just more there, and we had more to deliver as a team. We'd only actually sailed together for 18 months in the build up to London, so it was a really short kind of team campaign. And I think we both just felt desperate to kind of prove that actually we can go out there and we can win. And I'll never forget the feeling of standing on the second step of the podium and watching the Kiwis who'd done phenomenally well that week standing on top step and having their national anthem played and just thinking, not again. This next time, if there is a next time, that's going to be us.
How much did it hurt that it was a home games as well?
Yeah, a lot. I think, yeah, it really did. It just felt like a coulda, woulda, shoulda moment for sure. Yeah.
Where do those medals live? I was having a giggle with my daughter the other day with talking about Ben and his medals, and she was explaining how that, Daddy's won these 4 medals. I said, well, he's actually won 5. Like, we don't talk about the silver mummy. We don't talk about the silver mummy. It's like ridiculous, but that's how she's decided to perceive it. Where do yours live? His are in some sort of crummy bags, pushed up somewhere in a corner of a room, never to be seen again. Do you place much emphasis and importance on the physical medal itself or not?
No, actually. Same. Ours are in a bag, stuffed away. When I say ours, my
you got
husband
too.
has some too, yeah. So yeah, stuffed away in a wardrobe right now. I would love to display them. Time doesn't seem to have allowed me to. Yeah, but no.
Does that speak to the mentality of a person though? Because both you and Ben obviously are similarly aligned on that, in that you're always facing forward. Is that a thing? Is that also a thing that you share in common? Because there will be some people that reflect very fondly on those moments and will always go back to them. But I know from speaking to Ben, he's always about what's happening next as opposed to what's been before. How do you approach that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think definitely when I was a bit younger, for sure, just like, boom, what's next? Always don't look back other than to learn the lessons from what you've just done. But I think now I'm definitely more conscious, and I was really conscious actually in that Tokyo campaign to really enjoy the moment and to kind of embrace what was happening now and not try and think too far ahead. And I think because I knew it was going to be my last Olympic campaign, I just wanted to make sure I soaked up every single moment of that. And I think having a daughter now as well after Tokyo, you really try and live in the moment and enjoy what's in front of you and not get too carried away with thinking too far ahead.
Yeah, when you look back at, the efforts that took you to those medals, you think about doing that with a little one in tow as well. I mean, what you're doing now is extraordinary, but you look back and then you look at some of the Olympians who are super mums doing it now. I mean, what does it take to be an Olympian and then to be a super mum version of that?
I don't know. I mean, sailing is a sport. I think sports are all different, but sailing, you're away so much with an Olympic campaign, traveling, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. So it'd be incredibly hard, and it's so all-encompassing. It really is, especially the last 6 months in the build-up to the Olympics. There's not enough headspace for anything else, really. So, yeah, the mums that are doing it, just wow, and the dads, but yeah, particularly the mums that have recently had babies, just wow, I think what an amazing thing to go and do. And obviously what I'm doing now is the same in terms of it's all encompassing, but we're in one place.
Yeah.
So Sienna's here, she's at nursery. So I come home, I see her every morning, every evening. So it's a little bit different to an Olympic campaign in that respect.
But you are trying to break new ground. So if you're able to win this America's Cup in October, it'll be the first time a women's team, has been in a position to do that. I mean, where does that fit in to the list of achievements in the Hannah Mills household?
It'll be up there. Yeah, it really will. I think, the way our sport's going in terms of, the push for gender equity and equality at the highest level and trying to drive opportunities for more young girls coming through the sport, I think so inspiring. If I was a young girl now looking at our sport, I'd be just buzzing, because there's the Olympic Games, there's SailGP, there's the America's Cup, there's 3 amazing, and then loads more obviously, but 3 events at the very pinnacle of our sport who are pushing opportunities for women, and that's really cool to be a part of.
So if you were to win, what is it? Is it the old mug for the women's event with a new version?
Good question.
A plate or something?
I've seen the trophy. It's kind of this sort of, I don't know, it's a trophy. It looks cool.
Where's that going? Is that getting shoved up in the cupboard along with all the other medals?
Yeah.
I'll definitely be displaying that one.
Bertie will probably take it.
Oh, Hannah, thanks so much. It's been great chatting to you.
Thanks.
Join us for the Performance People podcast every week for the highs, lows, lessons and stories from people like this lot. Michael Johnson.
Some days what I would see is a person who is a shell of what I used to be.
Eddie Hearn.
We don't operate in a business that's dangerous, but we just operate in one where you've got to sleep with one eye open.
Mo Farah.
It couldn't get any harder than what I've gone through, and at that point I just went for it.
Paula Radcliffe.
You can only control yourself.
Susie Wolf.
And Toto did once liken me to a donkey.
Every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.